Friday, December 2nd, 2022. I'm watching the CBS this morning. I'm thinking of quantum realm, quirks, bosuns, thinking about the transference and transcendence of the words over different populations of intellect, all of that have been spoken, whether it be on TV producer land, movie producer. Again, isn't it all some form of fleet equipment or naval equipment? I don't really know who runs that show. I'm thinking, where is this shoestring budget fight coming from? And I'm thinking there was something about a strike that President Biden was trying to avoid, talking about shoes. Shoes. I think it's Scarpe. What's the other one? Zapatos, I've heard just recently. Just so they full gaudy is whatever. That thane and tree. And so I'm thinking of the shoestring budget, and I'm like, I know I am a flower that belongs. I thought it was in the house of Nikki. Nicole, and well, again, my mother named me Nicole, but it's Nikki. That would be the hummingbird to my flower relationship. So I'm thinking on this. Men far greater parts, the whole summation of the whole, thinking of the small bit of mathematics that they have taught. I'm thinking of how Lewis tells me about this Einstein in very limited words. I mean, the word count is very truncated. It's like a trunk show, I suppose. I'm thinking of the shoestring budget that gathers with this for this purpose of whichever. I'm thinking of the evolution of this show biz. I'm thinking of the evolution of policing that showbiz, and then I'm thinking of I've suffered great trauma while here. I'm coping, being COP as a knockout, knockdown. I don't know what they did. John Price came to visit me in Hicksville in an old English way, once upon a time, once in a lifetime meeting, just to confirm Grumman, the one in Hicksville, had shut down. No idea what that was about until this morning. Speaking of knocks, Lewis leaves on in some quantum string theory of, I don't know if it was subliminal, I don't know if it was intentional. He puts on a different side of the shoestring budget. I mean, again, where's profiteers? Where are the buccaneers? I'm not quite sure. At pirates and piracy and this ongoing portfolio and management technique and strategy of very wealthy, power, and privileged people, that to me it just looks like it's raining cats and dogs. And I know that I was hurt along the way. And I don't know how to survive the level of trauma. So I'm just coping, being COP, E, in singularity. And if you sophisticate that into linguistics, of English, and it's COPING. Forgo spelling it correctly. When you truncate, if you put the 7 into a 3-letter and a 4-letter key pattern, it's cop, and then it's cope. Just saying. So I saw some knocks this morning in the Profiteer ring. So it led me to the memory of John Price. In Once Upon a Time, I don't know, again, that's the name he used. There's been, I think there was 2 Erics. But there's discerning difference between them, just between them and I, and the great beyond that seems to know everything before it even happens and then thereafter. But again, being a planet, a solar system, in a galaxy, in a black hole system, which is where I've been at the moment. And it looks like someone's grandma got run over by a reindeer. Don't know how that complicated issues even more. Just being on an island and knowing that there's my own trauma going on from what I can see. So I see, they have up this FTX gentleman or guy or whatever person. He was a billionaire, then he went bankrupt. Never heard of him in his heyday. Not on his way up, not on his fall, not on his speaking engagement after. They're talking about something about lawyers, and he's making an announcement that there is some form of duty and responsibility. Again, there's wisdom in the journey of what not to do, what happened, and pieces and parts. So I'm not quite sure. I'm listening to him. His name is Sam Bankman-Fried. I'm listening to him with a keen ear at the moment. I don't have access to attorneys and things like he does. So I am just very carefully listening to his piece in this universal prowess of shoestring budgets, while being held at bay for some reason, with Alexander. I mean, again, having general and specific relativity in time and space to my person. Now that I've reached medieval on an escalator, I mean, it's mid-terms, it's midway, it's how do you fit a mid-size SUV in a helicopter? There's some things that are just rhetorically known amongst a very small few. So I'm watching this. I'm watching what he said, and Lewis left it on the CNBC, which I've seen the station before when I worked in the financial markets or the financial district as customer service, answering phones and helping the clientele, learning how to use the machine that was there. Small, brief introduction to it all, plus I had licenses and whatever. But again, that's on my resume, which I handed over to representatives that were local, just so I don't trip myself up in whatever. Because I don't know who's here on whatever. It gets confusing. So there's the FTX thing and his announcement this morning was put on CNBC. I briefly taped it, and then they brought out something with the B-21 bomber with Northrop Grumman, and I'm like, whoa, that's an announcement. And then I'm thinking back to infancy and the Gospels and the Annunciation. And I'm like, it's all there. And then I actually had a dream, like a REM, DREAM, Beta Theta, Delta Alpha wave kind of a thing in REM sleep. That's rapid eye movement. Um, Something went on last night. Normally I shut off, unplug, I wake up the next day and it's like it's all, the machine turns off and back on. There's no recollection of what transpired in the evening. Um, but I turn on or I wake up in body mechanics. And this morning there's a connection to an REM from last night, some kind of really strange house, like box system where the rooms don't quite, I think they made a movie on it once, but as a reference, but whatever. Um, and in one room, there were like these small things walking on the floor, and it's just knew it was a scorpion, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if that's a Father November, like, or if that's a Houston reference, but it was a clear body with orange um, appendages, or like a blood orange color. And I'm just like, what is that? And then there was a snake that was in the dream as well. Um, but that started climbing up and then it just evaporated and disappeared again in a technological matrix, which the gospel also talks about, um, when not in a, I don't know, when consciousness gets thrown around. But and then again, it's not language I want to put words to in a scientific, like as if it's acceptable, but whatever. um it's a way of spatial recognition in a transcendence kind of a way. The movie kind of touched on it in a kind of sort of, but not really. But how do I find words to explain something that the humans don't know or don't talk about in my life frame? Different walks of life, I suppose. Then they're speaking on, this morning they had um, the Prince and Princess of Wales, I think they refer to it, or in Boston. I don't remember the exact words. I'm going to watch it again on camera. And it's about this company and it's about Earth Shot. Now I'm thinking to myself a couple of different levels of reality. One is I have no idea in their charitable way of investing in these projects. How do you become one of these projects? How do you get involved with one of these projects? How do you even hear about one of these projects? And then, like, this is like a whole part of I belong as a family member with a respectable hummingbird as his flower. How is that taken from my life frame and nothing replaced except a series of rooms where the supergravity of black hole becomes worse and worse while other things are being advanced and enhanced and really frightening again. So I'm just like, so I'm watching this, so I'm thinking on that. I'm like, as a human in this system, or just a piece of stardust, not like a shining or like whatever. How does one in there? And then I'm like, I know it wasn't my journey, but I know people make their way to it. So I'm like, that's one level of humanity, an opportunity that they've enhanced themselves with. And I'm just like, hmm. So I'm listening, and then I'm listening to the words that they use to explain this thesis that they're promoting for this green shot and this way of circulating and matriculating money and opportunity and whatever and circulating it out into the public. I'm thinking of like steam fitters and a boiler and how you build a boiler and then like a I forget the word for it, but the system where the heat comes from underneath, like in a mat kind of a way. I've seen them under the tiled floors in the projects and the real estate development that I've been on construction site for. So anyhow, so I'm watching this and I'm thinking to myself, and I'm listening to the word construct of this hypothesis of carbon monoxide. Then they have something where they're taking the pollutants. And I'm like, right, oh, this must be one of those paradox where it's woven into the possibilities of several different whatevers and mechanics. Because again, it's like I feel like I'm looking at shoestring mechanics for pieces of a reality for which there's profiteers somewhere hidden in all of this. And then there's my trauma and there's me coping with it and not trying to start drama, but also not trying to get hurt anymore. So I am just so coping or learning a coping skill at the moment. Just so shoestring mechanics are aware, I suppose, on some shoestring budget that I don't have access to.
There's a shot of Boston. We're there for a reason. We welcome you back to CBS Mornings because tonight in Boston, Prince William will award this year's Earthshot Prize, created to encourage those trying to fight climate change and protect the environment. The Prince and the Princess of Wales visited a climate change incubator just outside Boston yesterday. Senior National Environmental Correspondent Ben Tracy also went along and joins us now to bring us up to date on that story. Ben, good morning to you.
Gail, good morning. This is called Greentown Labs. It's the largest climate tech incubator in all of North America, and the Prince and Princess came here to meet with some climate entrepreneurs, which is exactly the kind of thing that the Earthshot Prize is designed to highlight. We visited an innovative company in Chicago that is the only U.S. finalist for tonight's big awards. When the fast fashion brand Zara debuted this little black dress this past summer, it was a pretty big deal.
I find it interesting. Shoestring budget, the boiler room, boiler template, little black dress, and then it covering some climate change and carbon monoxide producing dangerous whatever's going on. Again, I'm watching the practical between somebody else seems to be protesting and contesting with one another. I just want my hummingbird and just whatever. Here I am, just coping in his absence.
The first party dress made from pollution.
We convert pollution into the products you use every day.
So from trash to treasures.
Yeah.
Jennifer Holmgren is CEO of Lanzatech. It turns planet-warming carbon pollution into everything from those party dresses to plastic bottles, Lululemon gym shorts, household cleaning products, and even jet fuel that powered a recent Virgin Atlantic flight from Orlando to London.
I mean, again, I hear the overlapping between what does this communication and journalism industry do? I mean, are they taking pollutants out in the field that they find and then turning them into bright, shiny pennies? I mean, is that how this got so expensive and went from the original 13 stations to some, I don't even know how many stations they have now.
We've done it at commercial scale, and there are real products out there, so it's real. It's not science fiction. We've made it work.
The company currently has 3 facilities attached to steel plants in China that capture carbon emissions before they're released in the atmosphere and converts them into ethanol, the building blocks of countless products.
So the carbon pollution would come into the reactors that you see there.
She showed us how it works at their demonstration lab in
Now, I've been speaking about ethanol, real life in my field, update status. There's not for myself, but there's increased what the doctors or the social medicine doctors are referring to as cholesterols, high cholesterol. They label as HDL, LDL, at pharmaceutical, and there's plaques that build up that cause altered health phenomenons. I've documented that. Lynn and Lou have gone through that. I don't personally suffer from it. But then again, I have different behaviors than they do on certain things. So they are in medical care at the moment, in some kind of long-term monitoring of the impacts of all of this. But the ethanol, I've been speaking of just recently as like a breathable alcohol, and then the effects that I'm feeling, not necessarily is it just that, but I can't discern by just scent alone, but it is what's labeled as a possibility of one of the things that are altering or tampering with my ability, since I have no ability to move from this place. That was taken from me a long time ago when Hummingbird was not delivered, or my flower wasn't delivered to him. So I don't really know. But I hear this morning, I hear them speaking of this ethanol product. I don't know if they're putting that word into some like brighter picture or to expand some argument somewhere. I'm not quite clear. I see some of the signs and signals. Again, I already put up the flag for where my feet are at the moment, not trying to get into an argument or a fight, but there's some local issues that I needed addressed with some of the scents and chemical mixtures coming off of some of the local licensed fuel distributors.
in Chicago. These monitors we're wearing detect carbon monoxide leaks.
It kind of looks like some sort of margarita in a blender
Yeah.
back there. But those are microbes eating carbon dioxide?
That's right. So actually, the reason you see all the bubbling is because the carbon dioxide is being bubbled through the reactor, and the microbe eats it and makes ethanol. That's it.
It seems so simple.
It is actually.
It's also expensive. Each facility costs about $100 million.
So now, in other alcohols, I think that when they use fruit, they call it fermentation. But again, because it depends on the bacteria and the microbe that's doing this digesting. I mean, again, can one see that from this chair? No. I just, again, have this series of classes that I took, but for other purpose that now has transfer usage for some discerning some of this information that they're throwing out.
In dollars and can take years to build. But LanzaTech hopes the technology could eventually cut global carbon emissions by 10% and help clean up often toxic air in countries such as China and India.
A lot of people across the world don't see a blue sky at all. Our dream is that someday every child will draw the sky with a blue crayon.
The technology can also be used to make products from the carbon found in landfills, which could make the things we now throw away infinitely recyclable.
We believe in a future where there is no such thing as pollution or waste. That is always going to be your next raw material.
So this really could be an endless loop.
That's the idea.
It's pretty cool stuff, and she says she's grateful to the Royals for using their platform to give people some hope about what could be done to combat climate change. Now, here in Boston today, we're going to see the prince, the princess, and the president. President Biden is coming to town for a fundraiser, and the White House says he will greet the Royals. Tony?
All right, it's a big day there in Boston and some pretty big technological breakthroughs as well. Ben, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So I find that interesting. And again, like if that's like the corporate pitch, I understand it. I mean, I fully get it. It's just there's other side things that go on currently from the local to some, I mean, between the vacuum where time seems to stand still or elapses differently than what's going on here. I think those are words that they use when they speak of things at like the Einstein level. For the brief introduction that I've had to that in small increments, nothing really that I'm able to harness and regurgitate. Now this program is called Squawk on the Street, and it's E242, and it's Friday, December 2nd.
I didn't ever try to commit fraud on anyone. By late November 6th, I'm starting to think about like things might end quite badly. There was no person who was chiefly in charge of positional risk of customers. I substantially underestimated what the scale of the market crash could look like. There absolutely were management failures, huge management failures.
What are your lawyers telling you right now? Are they suggesting this is a good idea for you to be speaking?
I think I have a duty to explain what happened.
A duty to explain what happened. Interesting. Again, there's so many schools of thought that go up on the shoestring budget, almost like competing systems, all competing, but then and then some emerge. But I mean, it seems like they throw people in trouble a lot. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza, it's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken. I'm not going to throw up there the knock, not the USA versus Netherlands mention from this morning, nor the other knock version that they put up. One was on CBS, the other was on that CNBC that Lewis in like real quantum string. But again, I don't know. He watches that stuff. He was up here eating his breakfast. I was in a different room doing something totally different. And then I walked in order to continue what I was doing in the living room, and on came CNBC, and on it was the piece from this Sam. So I taped it, and then I went back to it, and in order to get to it, I had to go through, and that's when I saw this. It's not, I mean, they call it stealth, but in a lower linguistic scale, I guess they'd say it an aeroplane, AEROPLANE, as opposed to a STEALTH. So, and then I sat to listen to what that meant and to some of the surrounding whatevers. But that shoestring budget that's shoestring on the television in what the allowance in possible tie-ins for the day in programming allowance, as opposed to the practical quantum string of events that happened in the real quantifiable field of where I exist outside of these documents, and where the shoestring budget comes in, and then whatever else, and however that works. But again, that's in a realm where QUIRK, Charm, and BOSUN exist, which has some name to it, which eludes me at the moment. Again, I haven't studied this. I mean, it's all like little pieces of introductions here and there with a couple of words, so I can build my reality of and structurally contain and protect myself. I mean, I don't even know at times how to relate to Lewis. I mean, like, I know he knows some things from whatever he's been invited into as far as education, but there's a big riff between he and I, like he lives on planet Lou. I'm totally different. I'm on an escalator, and I had different purpose, worth, and meaning. And he's relatable, but not if he's not instructed or directed properly. So that gets real confusing up until this point, where now I'm seeing things in a different abstract. One of the this comedian Noah Trevor, who's on every now and again, he said, to quote him, he said something this morning on one of his shows, or in part of CBS. He said, Elon Musk was a car guy with Tesla and the electric. Him making an announcement about a computer chip in the brain and the possibility of it being implanted in for medical device purposes in the future. He's like, that, not so far off, I understand. He says, but now that Elon is involved with Twitter, and then you have this chip on the brain, he's like, that, not so much. And I'm thinking to myself about how that distinction just totally changes the realm of that medical device and that whatever, and whatever. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Cattaruzza.